Alright everyone, I'm back in my milk tray outfit because I looked so tremendous in it yesterday. Um, Today I want to talk about the um, the comments from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and then I guess the implications that has and what it says about Manchester United's players, and look at the modern day Manchester United player and how problematic that is. First off, for me, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is a footballing legend for Manchester United. One of my favourite memories of him is not the one you might think, but it was we were playing Newcastle at home. It was the last throws of a dice in a title race. We had to at least not get beat, and Rob Lee was clean through on goal, and no one else was around. And Solskjaer had just come on, and everyone else looked knackered, and he sprinted pretty much the length of the pitch, and just absolutely obliterated Rob Lee with no intention of playing the ball to save his team because he knew he couldn't get the ball, and he got sent off. But we got a draw. It wasn't enough that season, as it turned out, but we got a draw, and he walked off to a standing ovation from the Stretford end. A year later, he did what he did with the treble. I was there when he scored the 4 goals against Notts Forest. I've been lucky enough to see countless of his goals, countless occasions where he scored loads of goals for United off the bench and actually from starting positions as well. Intelligent football player, great guy, loves United. And when he came back, I thought it was a brilliant idea for the rest of that season. I understand why they appointed him. I don't think they almost couldn't not appoint him after what happened in Paris and the run he'd had, and I get it, but it should have been a 1 year contract. And I think there was other managers out there, whilst he wasn't pulling up trees at United, that could have come in and done a better job. All that's by the by. He's now come out and said what he said. There's a couple of things I want to tune in on, maybe three. The Harry Maguire thing. He said that there's players that refuse to take the captaincy, which says a lot about those players if it's true. And I wonder if he's protecting himself a little bit there, because it's widely now agreed that the captaincy was given to Harry Maguire far too soon. And perhaps Solskjaer's thinking, I'll make it sound like I tried to give it someone else, but no one else wanted it, so I gave it to Harry Maguire. I'm not sure. Not sure I believe that, to be honest, from him. The issue of players not wanting to train and not wanting to play to get moved out of clubs, and if they did turn down the captaincy, things like that are hugely indicative of the problems at United and a cycle that's developed. The club, because it has a lack of football knowledge at board level, employs players that are not right personality wise for United, because United are looking at things from a commercial perspective rather than a football perspective. Those players then come in, and because there's other players like them, it's United I would call a zombie club in more ways than one, actually. But as soon as a player comes in, there's so many bad influences, it's like that new player becomes infected. They've been bitten by those other players. They become infected by the disease-ridden club that we are. Those players that have come in that weren't brought in for the right reasons then start to down tools. They're paid a huge amount of money, so they're difficult to get rid of. And when someone like Solskjaer says to the board, which I imagine he did, look, this guy's saying he didn't want to train, he didn't want to play. You're going to have to get rid of him. The board says, well, he's an asset. He's on too big a wages. You have to deal with it. That's a massive problem. And therein lies the loop that we're constantly in with players like that. Then we can't get rid of those players, and we just bring more players in who probably aren't great eggs in the first place anyway, but even if they are, they come in and they're infected by the ones that are there, and it's just rinse and repeat. It's a huge issue at United, and it remains so, and that is set from the top, that's set from the Glazers. The thing I had less sympathy for him on is the thing he said about only getting 3 signings. He said he had to agree to it before he took the job. He had to agree to it, that he would only get 3 signings per season. I might be being hugely naive now, and I'm sure that Ole Solskjaer thought to himself, look, this is my dream job, I'll agree to whatever you want, where do I sign? I understand that. But Ole paints himself as a man of the people. When the Glazers took over, Ole Solskjaer was one of the few players who was happy to be associated with the protests that were going on at that time. There was a poster, and I had it cut out and on my desk, that said, he's fighting for his club, will you? And it was a picture of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, which is a risky business because he was still playing for the club at the time. And I just think, Ollie, no one held a gun to your head to take that job, the United job. If they're saying there's only going to be three players per seat per window, three major signings, looking at the situation that we've got, that's not going to be good enough. You know how poor they are at selling players. He would have gone down managerially as much more of a legend if he'd have spoken out, and if, or maybe even if he'd have walked away. And I know that I'm being unrealistic, and I know I'm being idealistic, but for me, I'd have a lot more respect for him if he'd have done that. He worked within the confines of what he had pretty well, especially given his limited coaching experience and coaching expertise that he didn't really have. But it was always a ceiling on what we could achieve with Solskjaer as a manager. So let's bring it back then to now, the players that we've got now, the issues that are there at the club. Ralph Rangnick said we need a major open heart surgery. It's not happened. So last season, when we got battered by Brentford 4-0 and we were outplayed by Brighton in the first game of the season of that season as well, Erik ten Hag wisely basically reverted back to playing a system not dissimilar to what Solskjaer played. I'm not a tactical expert, but Ten Hag likes to play a relatively high line, or had done at Ajax. For United last season, he tried to start with that higher line. We got absolutely battered. So he thought, sod that, I've got to work with what I've got. So he moved everybody further back. We became a relatively counter-attacking team. I think that's why Rashford had such a good season. Rashford's a good player in a counter-attacking team. He had to do that because he didn't have the players he needed. And it shows his flexibility and his adaptability as a manager. But, I repeat, he had to do it because he didn't have the players he needed. Now, we're a year on from that. And you think, well, 2 summers, and you've had a January, surely you'll have got rid of the players we don't want, and surely you'll have brought in a few more that we do want. But again, he's thinking, well, to progress this, I've got to start putting my mark on it. I've got to start playing the way that I want to play it. I've got Onana now, so he can play that line a little bit higher up. And again, because he hasn't got the players to do what he needs to do, and the injuries that we've got, we're getting mullered, and we're too easy to play against. So he's now got a decision on his hands. Do I forsake another season of trying to play my style of football and safeguard some results and get some results and basically just stand still? We'll probably end up hopefully finishing in the top 5 or 6 if he does that. Or do I, for the sake of trying just to make something happen, play everyone higher up and continue to try and make my style implemented into this team when he knows he hasn't got the tools or the assets to do it? All of that comes back to the top because he's not got what he needed. The injuries, we're getting loads of injuries because players have been overplayed. Why have they been overplayed? Because last season he didn't have a squad, because they didn't give him what he needed. It all comes back to the same stuff. It all comes back to the same problem. And they're sat in America, happy as pigs in shit. It all comes back to the same thing. When I look at the integrity of the United players, and just to kind of circle back round before I finish, there's so very few players that I like in that team. There's players who, and Solskjaer's revealed it, that are just, they're not bothered. They're not there for Manchester United. They're not there for the shirt. They're not there for the badge. I don't think they look around the dressing room and think, I'm going to fight for you, I'm going to fight for you, I'm going to fight for you. Players that we've had like that down the years, like Herrera, United have let go of. And that's why I don't mind Fernandes. And some people don't like him. But Fernandes, for me, at least he fights. At least he looks like he cares. He's not perfect. He does moan at everybody. But I think I would if I played for that team. There's mediocrity that just seeps through every bit of that club, and that's why we desperately need Qatar, because they won't just come in and give money. They'll come, I don't think anyway, I think they'll come in and expect a lot, and not in returning as in financially. I think they'll expect trophies, they'll expect success. it's an ego project probably to some degree or other, but let's use that to our advantage. If it's an ego project, they're going to want to usurp City. They're going to want to be better than City. And over a period of time with our fan base, we will be. My lad is 12 years old. He's not seen United be successful. Talking to him on the way back from football training last night, and he said about City fans saying that United fans are all from London, etc. And I said, mate, at the moment, for me, I'm lucky. I've seen us win everything. I said, like, I can openly acknowledge City have got a great team, a fantastic team. They've got it through ill-gotten means. They're cheats. However, they are a brilliant team, and you've got to say that. And you've got to look at it and say he's getting a tune out of players that are also getting a lot of money, just like our players are getting a lot of money, but they look a lot more motivated than ours do. However, if we get on an even keel, if we get on a level playing field with City, it's game over, because it's not even comparable, the two clubs. City have always, as they always go on about, had a decent following in Manchester. United have a bigger following in Manchester, a bigger following all around the country, and a bigger following worldwide. My lad replied with, if you went to Italy, I bet you couldn't find 5 people who knew who Man City were. And I was like, that's my boy. But if we get it right, and we sweep this mediocrity out, we're a behemoth of a football club, and we need to be operating like one. And we know we're not. And the potential of this club is ridiculous. So it comes back to the same thing. Got to get the Glazers out. For me, we've got to get 9-2 Foundation in. And for whatever reason today, I'm feeling optimistic about it. So let's hope it happens. Up the Reds, Glazers out.